and gentlemen, grab your pen and paper and write down 3 things you're grateful for. This is OD on Life. Come get high with us.
Hey everybody, it's Dan O'Donnell here. It's OD on Life, episode number 2. Thanks for joining us. A couple quick announcements before we get going here. I wanted to let you know that we are now approved on iTunes, on Stitcher, and we do have a YouTube channel for this podcast. So if you use any of those services, feel free to check us out there. Just search OD on Life. Again, that's iTunes, Stitcher, and YouTube. Our goal each episode is to give you at least one nugget you walk away with and can actually apply to improve your life. So today, here to help us do that is Mark Brenwall, who's my best friend. We've agreed on that in the past.
Whoa.
Okay, bit presumptuous on my part, but one of these days I think Mark might agree to be my friend. And so Mark is someone that I met here in Chiang Mai, and we've done a lot of fun stuff together. We've talked business together, and more and more I started thinking that he was an appropriate guest for this podcast because mainly he seems to be having a really fun time.
It's true. I enjoy living here.
Yeah, and it shows. I know more than once when we've talked about something, either the weather or when we went to the houseboats on the lake and all that kind of stuff, Mark will often say something like, "Why would you ever leave?" And with a big grin on your face. So welcome to the show, Mark. Thanks for agreeing to be on it.
Happy to be here.
Let's jump into your background a little bit. I know a bit about you, but not a ton. Originally, you're from Wisconsin. Is that
That's
right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And at some point, you made your way to California.
In 1999.
Okay. So what was Wisconsin like? Let's start there.
I grew up in a really small town, 3,000 people. It was small town America, right? It was a white picket fence, and everybody knew everybody else's business. And I think I was supposed to marry a school teacher in the town next door and have 6 kids and stay there the rest of my life.
Like Hoosiers, the movie, right?
Like Hoosiers.
Cool.
And it didn't work out that way.
Okay. What did everybody do there? Was there a
There's
factory? Or?
there's always the local factories in Wisconsin. There's cheese factories. There was nearby was a place called Kohler, which makes all worldwide makes lots of bathroom.
Yeah.
You see the advertisement. That's in Wisconsin. Harley Davidson is there. So there's lots of small and big factories. So.
Harley is centered there in Wisconsin?
It's actually in Milwaukee. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Cool. That's a pretty neat story, too, the story of Harley.
Yep.
Yeah, on the History Channel, I think I saw something. It's pretty cool. Okay, so you grew up in that kind of environment. And when did you end up leaving? How old were you?
I left Wisconsin. I went to school in University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee. Stayed there for a few years after, and then I left when I was 28.
Okay. And what did you study at the University of Wisconsin?
I studied mass communication, which was, back then it was radio and television. I think by the time I left, they were just starting like a website class, one class,
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, literally, and this is dating myself, but I think I checked my first email my senior year, so I was probably 26.
And do you remember that?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of those moments that I think our whole generation will remember.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, it was like, "Did you get this?" I think it was my first email to someone who lived in New York.
Okay. And then they responded,
Yeah.
YES. Did they say LOL or anything?
I don't know. I'm sure they didn't do LOL.
That hadn't been patented yet. So that's funny. I never thought about that. I bet almost everybody we know has a memory of their first email.
Sure.
I remember mine was my uncle. He lives all over the place. He worked for the UN. At the time, I think he was in France. And I think my dad started using email before I did. And I sort of, it's not very useful, whatever. And all my friends were in my hometown, basically. But my dad had a brother in France, so he sent an email. And there was I don't remember the response. All I remember is my dad hit send, and he said, "It's already there." And I said, "No way, right now?" And he said, "Yeah, he's probably asleep right now, but if he was awake, he could read it right now."
Yeah.
And it's free? He said, "Yeah, it's free." I just couldn't believe it.
No. It was wacky.
Yeah, and to think before email, And now it's even easier with Facebook. But if you had moved to California, say you were born 50 years before you were, I mean, it would be snail mail and sending pictures, handwritten notes.
I mean, I remember, of course, I remember my first cell phone.
Yeah.
I was living in San Francisco, working online, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
moved to San Francisco to work online. That was obviously during the dot-com boom, and I got my first cell phone, and like things changed in that period of time very, very quickly.
Yeah. So you were moving to California to work for a tech company. Is that right?
So I graduated with mass communication degree,
Okay.
and then I went and worked in some advertising agencies,
Oh, okay.
and started doing website development in Wisconsin. And then there was just I don't know, just like a calling. I think what happened for me is I was living with a few different guys I went to college with. One of them was decided to get married, and so we weren't going to be living together anymore. And I thought, you know what, great time to get the hell out of here,
Yeah.
right? And so then I moved to San Francisco, and to be honest, it was a crazy time. I felt like a professional athlete. I went from making 25,000 to 125,000 in
Yeah.
a year.
Right.
It was crazy.
Wow. So good choice. You were happy too. Were you just making a lot of money, or were you enjoying it as well?
It's the big leagues.
Yeah.
Going from Milwaukee to San Francisco was pretty intense.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say it took me a good year to be happy because it was just overload. Meeting all new friends, and I just wasn't. I didn't have the skills that I have today when it comes to being comfortable with myself, and it took a while.
Yeah. That's actually something that I've got it right here on my Google Docs to talk to you about. You've mentioned being comfortable with yourself. You strike me, and this isn't just flattery, it's true. You come across very confident. And you also, I noticed you make this, or at least it seems to me that you make decisions really quickly. At least, I mean, some decisions maybe you have to think about for a while. But your typical everyday, are you doing this? Are you going to come play tennis tonight? I mean, with you, it's usually I hear a yes or a no.
Right.
And it's either see you there in 10 minutes or no. And so, did you develop that over time, or where did that confidence and decision making come from?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think it just comes from life experience. To get a little bit personal, like even in the last 5 years, I think that skill has become much more available to me. I used to, in San Francisco, moving from to San Francisco, San Francisco is a crazy town, and you can really get lost in it. And I did. I really got lost in sort of the scene, making more money than I know what to do with, and partying all the time. And that really left me feeling, in a weird way, it left me feeling very lonely and insecure. And in the last 6 years, I quit drinking totally. Focused more on what it is that I wanted. And now I don't know why, but I have this ability to just check in with myself and say, is this gonna be what I want to do?
Mm-hmm.
And just know.
And less concerned about what other people think of that decision.
Almost
maybe.
Not concerned at all because because I don't I have this sort of knowing that I'm gonna always have friends wherever I go.
Yeah. And
not to be cocky. And also being okay with not. Like if I'm going somewhere and it's lonely, it's okay to be lonely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that about you pretty quickly, and it made me look at myself. And sometimes I waver. People say, "Hey, are you coming to jiu-jitsu tonight?" or whatever. I go, "Well, I don't know. I'm working on this. Maybe I'll be editing this podcast or whatever." And so one thing I know I don't want to do is give somebody my word and then not do it.
Yeah, right.
That's, to me, that's like the worst case scenario. But I find myself not wanting to offend people, so I don't just say probably not or no as often as I should, really, because I notice when you just say no to me, I don't get offended.
Right.
I know it's not because of me.
Right.
It's just you don't want to do that.
Right.
And I think that, I mean, you see this in all the personal development books and relationship programs and stuff. It's I've heard people call it a high quality no. It's you say no and you're not wishy-washy about it, but you're not offending anybody.
I mean, I certainly do think I do offend people with it. but that's not my problem. You
Right.
know?
Right.
Um, there's a great book that I'm sure you know called Four Agreements,
Hmm.
right? And I think the first one is don't take anything personal.
Yeah. Right.
That's really hard,
Yeah.
really, really hard. I mean, I think we're all victims to it. But having read that book and thinking about it, at least I have something to draw on. Like, okay, yeah, maybe that wasn't meant to be hurtful to me, or even if it was, it's not about me.
Yeah. I've found, well, actually, being here in Chiang Mai, it's a really cool group of people here. And I find myself learning a lot, not just about, a lot of us are doing online business, but I just learn a lot about how to be a better person. There's just a lot of really thoughtful, smart people here that are working to improve themselves.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of, hey, I really appreciate the offer, but I'm busy. And yeah, saying no, I think some people make a really big deal out of saying no. I think the reason I'm dwelling on this is some people, I think that it's a struggle for them.
Right.
And so I
Well,
think,
when I was living in San Francisco, one of the things I really hated about it, San Francisco is a great place, and I'm not going to beg on it because I love it. I'm actually going to be there in the next couple of weeks. But everybody's so busy. Literally, like one of my closest friends, if I said, hey, okay, I had a handful of friends, like I said, hey, let's go golfing. We could go golfing on that same day. But most of the people I knew who were my close friends, it'd take weeks to get them to go to lunch.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, this is not the lifestyle I want to have.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, coming back to that sort of lonely feeling, like here I am in this bustling city full of millions of people, or I don't know if it's millions, but probably. And I end up spending a lot of time by myself. I spend more time with people here in this sort of slow-paced, casual environment. Like you said, you text me and say, hey, you want to play tennis right now?
Yeah.
Right? That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
It's the thing that I wanted to get back into my life.
And back when you had a phone, that worked well for me.
I lost my phone.
Was that on purpose?
No, listen. Okay, just a little tidbit about me. I'm horrible at traveling with technology.
Okay.
In the last 2 years, I have left an iPod with Bose headphones, 2 iPads, a cell phone on an airplane.
Ooh.
And my last trip, I left my cell phone and my iPad behind.
Wow.
And that was in KL when I was getting a visa.
Uh-huh.
There's $800 worth of technology.
Yeah.
It's like to me. So to me, it's like I have to punish myself a little bit,
Okay.
which means I have to sort of say, okay, you're gonna feel it's like to not have that shit in your life because you're obviously not finding it valuable enough to take care of.
Right.
So I did buy a new cell phone. It's waiting for me in the States when I get there.
Okay.
And I'll come back with it.
Do you miss not having a phone?
Not really.
Okay.
That's not true. I do miss it. Mainly because I'm addicted, and I think many of us are addicted to just like having something to play with.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I go get a massage or something, it's nice to have a foot massage and play on Facebook.
Yeah.
But have I missed it as an integral part of my life? No, not at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I use my phone a lot to listen to books on tape and podcasts and things. And actually, just yesterday, I was irritated yesterday, and I actually had to think about it. When you lose something, you retrace your steps and try to find it. I found myself basically pissed off, and I didn't really know why. So I kind of retraced my steps to see where I started getting irritated because I'm trying to solve this, right? And I've noticed the things that really can irritate me are technology not working right is one. Like the guy that that clip on YouTube where the guy like throws his computer down and starts stomping on it. That I feel like that sometimes. I never do it. And then crowds can really get me. Being stuck where everybody's walking slow in some market or something. So I retraced back, and the Wi-Fi went down a couple times during that day, and I think that just gave me this underlying tension, and I was trying to get things done, and then I also realized I didn't take a lot of breaks that day, so I worked probably a little too much, not way too much. I just needed a couple more 10-minute breaks, and the technology not working was irritating me, and then I went to go for a walk, and just out of habit, I really should have gone for a walk by myself, but I invited my girlfriend to come with me, and I realized right after we left that wasn't the right move, and it's nothing against her at all. I just needed some alone time, And walking and moving can really make me, if I'm irritated, just going for a walk is the best thing. But it needed to be by myself. So it's interesting as you learn about yourself. You can learn how to control your emotions.
It's weird, and I feel you on all those things. I've lately been getting irritated too, and um, it's very evident to me that I've been working too much.
Mhm.
It's weird, right? Because here we are in paradise. You and I both live near each other. We pay pennies for our condos, and yet a lot of us work a lot.
Mhm.
A lot of us here, digital nomads or suitcase entrepreneurs or whatever you want to call it, we work pretty hard, and it's almost like the default state,
Yeah.
right? It's always laptop open, always blah blah blah. I've decided yesterday for the first time since a long time, I bought a book,
Mhm.
you know, a real book like with pages, and I also have a hammock which I put up on my deck, and I'm like dedicated to not being over my laptop for a while.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's something I could work on. I know Ben Finnegan. I'm not. Have you met Ben? Yeah, you know Ben. Anyway, he has a rule. I believe it's no laptop after 9 and no screens after 10. And that seems like he goes to bed earlier than I do. But I've been thinking about should I have a no laptop or no work hour? I hesitate on that because I get a lot done in the middle of the night sometimes. But I need to figure out something because I don't want to end up in that irritated state.
Yep.
And I was talking to a friend back home and found myself almost hiding when she said, How are you doing? The last thing I want to say is, oh, I'm a little stressed,
No.
because everybody back home, oh, what are you kidding? I see your Facebook pictures. How could you be stressed? But it's true. It's not so much where you are. I mean, it's all what's going on in your own mind.
Yes.
And I think, the goal of each episode obviously is to give people something they can use. For me, something that's been really good lately is when I feel irritated, a lot of times I don't quite know why, but I retrace my steps just like I would if I lost my wallet. And it helps show me how to not do it again.
Yep.
So that's maybe a nugget for somebody out there. I know I can get into that overwhelm and that irritation.
I've been doing that since I was very young, um, although I haven't done it recently. So it's interesting that you sort of reminded me of that. And it also is interesting too about living with your girlfriend, which I know is new for you, and fairly new for me as well. Um, I reminisce in my mind. A couple of years ago, I lived in Colorado just to go mountain biking for the season, and I lived way up in the mountains with a friend of mine. We'd go to work every day, and I just had this mountain house and his dog to myself, and it was like the most peaceful, like literally. I mean, I wake up with a $1 million landscape in front of me, and just go walk around the woods every day, listening to podcasts or audiobooks. I remember I listened to the Mockingjay
Oh,
series,
the Hunger Games?
Hunger Games
Yeah.
series while I was living
Oh,
there
in the woods?
in the
Were you
woods.
like seeing people
It
behind
was
trees?
awesome. Like, literally, I was in
You took
the
your bow
zone.
and arrow with you?
And so now, even though this
Yeah.
is great and I love my girlfriend, like I miss those sort of moments of solitude that I
Hmm.
had. So I should get back to that.
Yeah, I know we have talked about that. And I wonder, did you have a lot of brothers and sisters?
One sister.
Okay. I'm an only child. And I wonder sometimes if that might be maybe I need a little more of it than most people,
Yep,
I think.
definitely.
Yeah. I'm used to it. People have, often when they find out I'm an only child, they say, "Oh, were you lonely?"
Right.
I said, "Man, you don't know how many hours I spent fascinated by my Legos.
Right.
I was not lonely at
Right.
all. I mean, I remember those little twist propeller balsa wood airplanes in my
Mm-hmm.
backyard. I mean, I got really good. I'm really good at hitting fungos in baseball because I used to throw it to myself so much.
Right.
I mean, it comes naturally now.
Right.
Yeah, some time alone is really good. I think that's one of those things too for a lot of people, especially like you said, in some places where it's so busy um, with work and family and things. People really need to schedule something.
Yeah.
Um,
I think you're right. I mean, I think that's unfortunate, but true.
Me too.
I was in the Philippines visiting my girlfriend's family recently, and she's got a big family, and it was to me it was mayhem, right? I think she gets the same kind of solitude out of that mayhem that I get
Mm.
out of being in the woods alone with the dog.
Yeah.
There's a comfort for her in that, where to me it was like, get me the hell out of here.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. you're reminding me of times I was with my extended family, and I, spending one-on-one time with almost all of them I enjoy, but man, when it gets to be a house full and everybody's talking at once, and it gets kind of
Yeah,
crazy.
I can't deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. Um, okay, you brought up the Philippines.
Uh-huh.
Going into your background again a little bit. So you moved out from Wisconsin after college. You wound up working for ad agencies in California.
Yep.
At some point, you transitioned to you're a programmer, right?
I was a programmer the whole time and sort of a front end web developer.
Okay.
We called it.
So that was your place of employment happened to be an ad agency.
Yeah, because I was always working with creative departments.
Yeah. Okay. And then at what point? Then you went to Colorado. That was pretty recently.
Almost. So what happened was I sort of left the agency world because I really got fed up with having clients, and I founded a startup with a few other people, and that lasted for about a year and a half, I think. Happened to make a good chunk of money, not a ton, not a retirement kind of money, but a good chunk, enough to sort of take it easy for a little while. And so I went to Colorado. No, first I went to Nicaragua and lived there for 2 months. Then I came back to San Francisco, and I went immediately, almost immediately went to Colorado. And both of those trips were sort of a way to sort of feel out, am I okay leaving San Francisco? Right? It was just like these are little tester trips, and I didn't really miss anything about San Francisco. Sure, I missed my friends, but I didn't miss like San Francisco was great for a while. There's great new restaurants and all that's exciting, and after a while it just becomes like, I don't really need to go to a new restaurant anymore, so why pay the price to live there? And so I did these other small trips. One small international trip to see if I would be okay going further international. And so it was really on the top of that mountain in Colorado where I decided I was going to move to the Philippines.
And you had been there before, or
Never,
no? Never. Okay. What made you choose the Philippines?
It was a dart at a map. I
Okay.
mean, I subscribed to this little weird publication called International Living, which I think is more of like a retirement set community, like how to retire in other places. But it has, kind of cute little articles about different places, and I knew I had been to Thailand many times, and so I knew Thailand was for sure a winner. But I didn't want to come here first because of that.
Okay.
Right? I wanted to try it someplace else first. And I got to the Philippines, really not knowing anybody and not knowing where I wanted to live, and kind of did the suitcase thing for a minute. Really very, very quickly met some great people who, long story short, kind of were the reason why I ended up here. Right? So they belong to this organization called Dynamite Circle. I started going to Dynamite Circle things, following along the forums, finding out where other expats like me. First of all, learning that there was a group of expats all around the world who kind of connect with each other as a way to have some kind of tribe together blew my mind. Like, this is exactly what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And I ended up coming to Chiang Mai primarily because a lot of people in the DC live here.
Yeah.
And I wanted to meet more of them. So that's why I'm here.
I was a member of the the Dynamite Circle for a while myself, and it's great. Like you said, especially if you're somebody that bounces around the world a lot, you can instantly connect with the network anywhere you land. Let's give them a shout out too. It's the guys that started the DC, the Dynamite Circle. They also have the Tropical MBA podcast. What it used to be called the Lifestyle Business Podcast.
That's correct.
Okay, so now it's Tropical MBA. They had two going for a while. It's a great podcast. If you're at all interested in business and travel and how to combine those things, bootstrapping, it's really solid information.
You can't beat it. I mean, the guy who runs it, two guys that run it, Dan and Ian, built these $1 million businesses out of hotel rooms around the world.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. And making amazing content to go along with it to sort of build the tribe of us.
Right. Something else that's cool about their story is, and I don't know, I'm not totally up to speed, but they're basically partners on a few projects, if not everything.
Right.
They tend to do most things together, and they're often not in the same continent, or
right.
They're nowhere near each other. They operate probably on Skype, I guess, and They're very good at systems. I've noticed.
Yeah.
They talk a lot about systems. So,
I mean, it's funny because I love Dan. I met him in the Philippines before I really knew what the Dynamite Circle was. I mean, I met the guy who started it just because he happened to be down there.
oh really?
Yep.
Okay.
And I was talking to him. The funny thing is I was saying, like Dan, I don't really like the Philippines. I felt really shy about saying it because I, in my heart I was feeling like, gosh, there's should be more here because I'd been in Southeast Asia many times and there's a feeling about Southeast Asia that I really love. It's just very like some deep cultural things. There's the in Thailand now. I'm so used to it. It's hard for me to identify it, but the way people bow
Yeah.
when they say thank you. The way I don't know. It just felt like I was in a movie.
I passed a monk on the way here today.
Right. Right.
Walking down
Exactly.
the street in his bright orange robe.
And I was in the Philippines. I they're I hate to bash in the Philippines. They're a real new culture,
Mhm.
right? Because they've been through so many wars and things and been stripped of their heritage. Like Thailand has never been overrun.
Mhm.
Bali also is great deep culture that I've experienced, and I just was missing something. And so I met Dan and I said, Dan, I'm just missing. He's like, well, what do you think you're missing? And I told him a few things. He's like, you need to go to Bali. And and he's like, and by the way, you should join this group that I started, Dynamite Circle. I'm like, well, that's whatever. Just like whatever.
You were so lucky and you didn't even
Yeah,
know it, huh?
totally.
Yeah.
Not only that, but he's like, oh, and I'll set you up with a place in Bali, and
Great.
he was just very,
Wow.
he understood what it's like to be an expat struggling to get started
And you met him through some other people you knew?
through these people in the Philippines.
Okay. Who you met just once you got there?
So when I got to the Philippines, I just started Googling online, um, obviously Googling online, where where do expats live in the Philippines?
Uh-huh.
Because like I said, I kept thinking there was more. Like I kept thinking I would walk around the corner and I would see what I've been missing. I'm like, oh, okay,
Right.
here's the culture.
Yeah.
So I started Googling around and went to a few different places in the Philippines. None of it really felt like, wow, I could be here for a while.
Mhm.
So then I just found these guys called at the time they're called the AdSense Flippers.
Yeah.
They lived in the Philippines. They basically did exactly what I was doing, and they had a great podcast. They sounded like guys that were really plugged in. They lived in a town called Davao in the bottom of the Philippines, and so I sent them an email and I said, hey, I'm happen to be going to your town. We should meet up. That wasn't true.
I was just going to ask you.
Didn't happen to be going to the town. I went there to meet them.
There's another nugget for you guys listening. This is a technique that it's time tested and proven. I know a lot of people that have used it. I'm going to be in your town. Can we grab some coffee or I'll buy you lunch or whatever? Yep.
And we totally hit it off. And Dan is friends with them. And so he happened to be visiting them. And that's how I got connected with it.
Yeah. That's wild. So this reminds me of, I can't remember who says it, but you can't wait till all the lights are green to leave the house.
Right.
So you showed up, you started Googling for different places and, you bumped into some people that were like-minded and one thing leads to another. I know Johnny, we're on like the shout out podcast here, but Johnny who runs the Travel Like a Boss podcast, that's something he talks about a lot. Just start, just go, take the first step. You might not know what the second step is, but you'll get there,
This is something that I've learned later in life too, especially now being really self-funded, right? Being my own boss and building my own income streams. I have to be comfortable not knowing what the right next steps are going to be, but just being comfortable knowing that I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Right.
And
that's a very new, again, last 5 years.
Yeah. And in reality, even if you think you have your next 5 steps all planned out, you don't know if there's a curveball coming. So, I mean, in reality, it's you think you've got it all planned out, but you don't. This is just how I see things. Some people think life is sort of like chess. I think it's more like dodgeball. All of a sudden, a ball's flying at you. Do you dodge it? Do you catch it? You throw one over here. You can't really predict.
No.
And so, to get comfortable with that uncertainty, I think that's something that a lot of people are working on.
It's a weird thing, right? Because people talk about, people who haven't had the experience we have of you know basically selling all your shit and moving across the world. Talk about job security,
Hmm.
right? And job security is really bullshit.
Yeah.
I feel more secure now knowing that I can hunt and gather my way to self-sufficiency no matter what happens
Yeah.
than I ever could working for somebody else.
And the thing is, too, if you're counting on somebody else for your security, you can be in the dark. You might not know that last week your boss took a line of credit to make payroll.
Yeah.
And he's not going to tell you until he can't make payroll. I mean, some people would. They give you a warning. Some people don't. A lot of people don't. So, yeah.
And I always say, too, like when people get upset, like, oh, my company, this and that, they should take care of their employees. I'm like, what? Yes and no, right? A business's job, if you can personify a business, is to stay in business. And if that means they need to fire people, that's business, and you happen to tie yourself to that train, and those are the breaks.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Yeah, I understand. It doesn't feel good. You feel like you don't have any control in your life. That's not the business.
That's the key you just hit on right there. Is you, and this is how I look at it. You are responsible for your life, and you might surround yourself with great people who will help take care of you and everything. But when it all comes down to it, you've got to be ready to take care of yourself.
You got to be ready. Recently, I had. I was building some small AdSense earning websites. Right. I wasn't building them. I was buying them, and I probably had an income stream of around $9,000 a month. And I got hit with a Google penalty across all of them, right? And it took me down to 3,000 a month, right? That was pretty. Could be.
Yeah.
I want to say it was crippling. But it's only crippling as far as I let it be.
Yeah.
Right. Because this is my life now. My life is like you say, it's dodgeball.
Mm-hmm.
Life is what happens when you're making plans, right?
Yeah.
Make your plans, but then life has different agenda for you. Okay, so I had to like sort of. The problem was it wasn't that I didn't have money I needed to stay here and be happy. The problem is I had already spent the money that I was going to earn in the future in my head.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, sweet, I'll turn this into 15,000 a month, and I'll be able to bounce around from here and there. And so it was that dream that sort of died, right? But I just had to sort of eat that and pivot and keep moving.
Yeah. That reminds me of a fundamental too. I'm big on fundamentals, by the way. A lot of people they're looking for the latest little trick and stuff, and that can be very useful. But you'll come across a lot of useful tricks if your fundamentals are solid. You're working hard, you're planning, you're strategizing, whatever. But something I read a long time ago, I think when I was just getting in the real estate business, is if you're in business for yourself, especially if you're in the beginning phases of it, keeping your fixed expenses low so you can take a hit like that.
Yeah.
Like if you had $9,000 a month coming in and 5,000 of that was going to office space that you had on a 5-year lease, and you went from 9 to 3, you're screwed, you're bankrupt, or you're begging your landlord to let you out of the lease. You're not in control at all. But if you've got 9,000 coming in and your expenses are 2,000 and you go down to 3,000 in income, you're still able to get by, and you can, you have time to collect yourself and think what's next.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I'm sure that those words are very, very frightening for most people that we know.
True.
Because they are so far away from that.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine that most of the people we know, especially those back in the States, are so far in debt that they don't even know how or if they'll ever get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's unfortunate. So I don't want to. I want to be careful not to be glib about like, oh yeah, just
sure.
Get yourself out of debt and it's not easy for most people.
And if you're in a lot of debt already, maybe think about whether you want to keep doing that to yourself. That might be something you can take away. But yeah, the fixed expenses, if it doesn't mean don't have any expenses, but a 5-year lease is a lot different than a 3-month lease.
Totally.
Having and if you can afford a 1999 Honda Accord and buy it cash.
Well, listen, we have a condo here not far from where we're doing this podcast right now that's just under $1,000 a month, right? In San Francisco money, it's probably would have been like 4,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good value. But still, I'm not immune to finding better value, and so
Yeah.
we found another place, roughly the same size, not quite as finished and beautiful, for like 250 a month,
Yep.
right? And I did it not because I needed the money, but because I want the flexibility
Yeah.
that if ever either something happens or I just want to take a break, I can live free and clear and happy for a long time without having to worry about the money that's coming in.
Right. I hear you. My grandpa lived through the tail end of the Depression, and they had how many kids? Six brothers and sisters in my dad's family, I believe. And I noticed, like, my dad for me was a really good role model of not living within your means, well within your means. And he worked at a BP oil refinery, and they worked overtime every year. Everybody pretty much made, if you took a decent amount of overtime, you're making $100,000 or more. And I remember he didn't use the dryer. We had a clothesline in the back by the laundry stuff, and he hung everything to dry. And my shirts were always a little bit stiff, and I'm like, come on, why don't you use the dryer? But I think he came from
Mm-hmm.
a family of 6 or 7 kids and parents who lived through the Depression. And they know that you can take a hit sometimes, and being ready for that, having the rainy day fund, how many months or years do you have in the bank? That's Robert Kiyosaki. I don't know if you've checked out his stuff, but he talks about wealth. It's not the size of your stack of cash. It's how long that stack will last you. Can you go 3 months without earning a penny and survive? Can you go 3 years? That's how you look at wealth and security. Um,
You know, it's good and bad in my case. Yes, I have years worth of living. But the reason, I mean, it's funny to say that, right? Because the reason I have years worth of savings is because I have this sort of sickness, a little bit of like permanent financial insecurity,
mhm.
which is really, really odd. I mean, literally, if I wanted to spend all the money that I have saved and lived in Thailand, I could live here for probably 15 years
Yeah.
without earning another cent.
Right.
And that's not to brag. It's just like that's just my life. But I also work my ass off.
Mhm.
Like I said, I had to force myself to buy a book and sit in a hammock. So
And so,
that's not always a good thing.
does that come from that hit you took or something else? Was
No,
it before that?
no, it's just been my
Yeah.
ever since I mean I started saving in a 401k when I was 19.
Yeah.
Right. And
Right.
I've always looked at that retirement savings as something that is money that I have but I don't have.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I literally like don't think about that money. The whatever 300 plus $1,000 I have in a 401k is not my money. Right. I look at the amount that I have. I play like mind games with the money.
Yeah.
I look at the amount that I have in my business checking account, my saving, maybe I have to get personal, like $35,000 in sort of ready cash.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's all the money I have in the world.
Right.
I don't know why I do that, but that's how I do it.
Yeah. You're not going to cash out your
No,
retirement to
it's
buy a condo or
not gonna
yeah,
happen.
right. Uh, you know, this keeps reminding me of my grandpa. I don't remember the figure exactly, but he died with hundreds of thousands in the bank. He wasn't a millionaire, but for the type of work he did and for raising that many kids, they really managed to save a pretty good bundle. And he never did spend it.
Yeah.
And I think they only had one new car. Actually, I don't even know if it was new. It might have been used, but it was a convertible LeBaron that he bought for my grandma.
That's awesome.
I might have been a birthday present.
Yeah.
And have you seen that Tom Grady
Yeah,
movie?
that's
It's a LeBaron.
awesome.
It's
I
a
love
LeBaron.
it.
But it was
Freddie
a
Got
convertible
Fingered.
for
By
his.
the way, for those listening, Freddie Got Fingered is the name of that movie.
Yep. My old bookkeeper, I believe that was the movie. She was an extra in it.
Really?
Yeah. So, he got a convertible for my grandma as a present, and everybody thought that was awesome. But as a percentage of the cash that they had, it was nothing. It's really interesting.
Well, so these are the things I keep having to come back to in my life is like, yes, I live in paradise, have a beautiful girlfriend, have great friends here. Maybe I don't need to work so hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like also spending a little bit of the money that I've worked so hard to get. Enjoy the fact that I live here and can travel. It's weird, but I have to keep reminding myself of that too.
Yeah, interesting. let's transition off money just for a second. That's what I like about this. This is just a conversation. It can go wherever. But one of the things I wanted to bring up, I told you that, um, the more I hung around with you, the more I thought that I wanted to interview you for the show when it finally became a real thing. I thought about this for about 6 months.
Okay.
But another thing I noticed about you and your girlfriend that you mentioned is there's a quote that goes something like, "We don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing."
Mm.
And when we went to the houseboats that time, there's a reservoir. We all went up there, a group of maybe 10 or 12
do
of
that
us.
again too.
Yes, it was awesome. We rode these longtail boats across this giant lake and wound up at this little raft of houseboats with a restaurant and high dives and stuff. And at some point, I think the way it went down was something like you went to give your girlfriend a hug, which turned into you throwing her in the lake. And then, I don't know, a little while later, I look over and you've got her by one leg and she's digging her fingernails into the deck, trying not to get dragged in for a second time.
Yes.
And then you stopped and you're like, I'm sorry, just give me a hug, and she wouldn't hug you and I know what you're doing. But it reminded me, I mean, you guys were playing like kids.
Right.
And that's something that, it's awesome. And I wish everybody had days like that, So what that made me wonder was, were you like that in San Francisco? Is that partly a function of being here and having these surroundings, or your relationship, or have you always been like that?
I would say I've always been pretty immature.
Okay.
Right? I mean, good and bad. I mean, I'm 43 years old, and unfortunately, I don't look 43. I've been told.
No, I agree.
And I believe that a lot of that comes from just being very playful.
Yep.
I remember, this reminds me of the first time I did a 7-month trip around Southeast Asia. I was about 36 years old, and I was working for an advertising agency, and I took a sabbatical. And when I came back from that sabbatical and went directly back into the job that I left, same desk, same everything, work just seemed work, quote unquote work or business just seemed so weird, like everybody running around with like chickens with their head cut off, really making these false emergencies seems so important, right? And I'm like, this is just ridiculous, so where, it just reminded me, like, where did we lose the opportunity to just say, you know what, today let's go to the lake. I know it's Tuesday, and tomorrow's, like, I love being here and not having to think what day is it or even what time it is.
I was going to say, if it's Tuesday, you're one up on me because I don't know what day it is literally half the time.
And that's how I want it to be.
Yeah.
I want to have that freedom to just be like, I've always said, the best thing in life would be to wake up every morning and go, what should I do today?
Mm-hmm.
That is the goal in life.
Right.
And be able to do it.
Right. While you were saying that, I had to think about it. Today's Friday. I'm 99% sure.
Yes, it is Friday.
Yesterday was Thursday, which surprised me. I think I thought it was Tuesday.
Yes.
I mean, anyway.
Yes.
That's a whole nother thing.
Yes.
So, another thing on the list of reasons I wanted to have you on here, you helped me out with some business questions. Basically, we both have good-sized Facebook pages, and do you want to plug yours?
Nope.
Okay, I'll plug mine.
Okay.
Mine's called Positive Thinking, and so we were talking because we have that in common, and so we're both always looking for ways to monetize them, and ideally monetize them in ways that don't turn off the audience, right? You don't want to be cheesy and salesy all the time.
Oh, you'd be cutting your own throat.
Right, absolutely. So we were talking about t-shirts, and you gave me some really specific pointers and took the time when I really didn't know you very well. You took the time to sit down with me for probably at least a half an hour, maybe probably more, and give me really good stuff I could use. And I remember, whether it was that day or down the road, I think I said, okay, hey, I really appreciate you giving me all this info. What is there? I was trying to think of a way to make it an even trade for you. What can I give you or help you with? And your response surprised me. It was something I've never had anybody say before. Sometimes people just can't come up with an answer to that. But you just said something to the effect of, look, all this stuff I told you, I just learned from other people around here. I'm just passing it on to you. So just help somebody else out with something. Just pay it forward, right? Which to me was a really cool thing. And I think both of us are really lucky to have all these people around.
Oh my God. Chiang Mai is a very special place.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of people that came here from other places with good communities of entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
but they do say that the people here are much less guarded. They're more open and helpful. It's that abundance mentality,
Yes, that's right.
which is something that positive atmosphere and positive thinking page, we talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
How do you see the world? And I think Einstein used to talk about that. Do you think the universe is kind?
Totally. Well, and the funny thing is with that attitude, um, whether obviously it's not like from point A to point B, but you did end up helping me. You said, oh, hey, I use this little trick on my page to make some money, and I immediately turned that into another $1,000 a month.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Right. So see how like I wasn't worried about how I was going to get paid back because
Yeah.
I just knew.
Yeah. And really, what it did was I was looking for a way to even though you said you didn't want it, whenever something came up that, oh, maybe this would help Mark, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to send you a message or whatever. And I think it's a two-way street. And with you and other people around here, you build those, they're basically alliances, I guess. Yeah, you don't have to know exactly how it's going to come back to you, but it will.
It will.
I think.
This abundance mentality is very strange. My girlfriend is one. There's one person here in particular I've been sort of helping. He's very, very new to online stuff, and I just like the guy.
Yeah.
So I spend a lot of time sort of helping him. And she's like, "Well, how come you're doing that?" Especially because I've really got him right into my niche. Like he's really like basically copying what I'm doing, and I'm okay with that. Because I just believe that helping people um, be successful will pay dividends.
Yeah.
I just believe it.
And even if that never comes right back to you directly,
right.
I used to coach middle school football, and I really enjoyed that. And the first year I did it, I was just volunteering. And if I took a kid that didn't know how to go into a 3-point stance and made his stance look pretty in the course of one practice, that made me feel good, and he's not going to teach me anything. But he's gonna be grateful, like
right.
sincerely grateful. Right. And that's enough.
Yeah.
We're all on the same team.
It's one of the things I like about another one of the things I like about Chiang is that I just have the time to be able to do that. That I just can see somebody that I just like the shine in their eyes and say, well, just sit down, let me talk to them. Because also people do that with me, which is shocking. I see people who are so busy and they're like, and I ask them a question, they'll just shut down their laptop and talk to me for hours about it.
Mm-hmm.
Killer.
Yeah.
There's some smart people here.
Right.
Like I wouldn't have been ready for it at the time, but I wish I could have come here instead of going to college.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It would have been so much farther ahead.
Right. This reminds me of what Rachel brought up on the last episode. Rachel Mazza. Mm-hmm. She goes, she had a question for me. How do you ask somebody for help in a way that's fair to them, that's respectful of their time and all that kind of stuff? She really had me kind of stumped. What I came up with was use the advice they give you, for one. And then she said, have you ever heard of assholes?
No.
She said, yeah, that's right. You got to use what they tell you because you don't want to be an asshole. And she sent me the definition after the show. And it's basically somebody who asks you for advice all the time and then never does it. And then they ask you again. Right. Like, why are you asking me again? Right. You didn't do what I said last time. So I want to throw Rachel's question at you. How do you ask people for advice or help or whatever in a way that's fair to everybody?
Sure. I mean, I think typically what works for me is a sharing of knowledge. Mm-hmm. Like I think at some point you came to me and said, hey, I've got this Facebook page, you have this Facebook page, let's just sit down and talk about what we're doing, right? That's a perfect equanimity, mm-hmm. right? But now I'm thinking about people who came to me and asked questions who didn't have something necessarily to share, like this friend of mine now who I'm helping. It's a good question. I mean, he's actually my coach at CrossFit here in Chiang Mai. So I just kind of like the guy.
Yeah. Is that Barry?
Barry.
I like him too.
I just think he's a genuine, nice guy. And,
yeah.
And why wouldn't you want to help people that you like?
Yeah.
So I guess it's a hard question. Like it depends on your relationship with the person,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
In fact, I don't think he ever even asked me. I think I offered. I think he asked. I think he did. He asked me like, so what are you doing online? And I heard you're kind of doing this thing. It kind of interests me. I'm like, oh yeah, come on over. We'll sit down and have coffee and talk about it.
Yeah. No kidding. You would be such a perfect guy for him to talk to. Yeah. Huh. That's a tough question though, isn't it?
It's a tough question. Although I look at the guys in the Philippines who I just said, hey, I'll be in town. We should have coffee.
Yeah.
Just get yourself in front of somebody.
Mm-hmm.
People, good people want to help good people.
Right.
Right. So if you come across as somebody who's genuine, because you are genuine, and you're just looking to sort of shake hands and meet people, I think more than likely they're going to be willing to spend time with you.
This reminds me, I told Rachel about this too. There was a guy that I know, he's based out of Seattle, and he's a real estate investor. He teaches other people how to buy and sell things and owner financing and all that. That's my prior life. I was a real estate guy. And the big thing for him is he says he can't steer a parked car. He says, if you're a parked car, don't come to my class, don't ask me questions. But if you're moving, if you're in motion, I'm happy to help. There's no reward for, and that's when Rachel brought up assholes, I think. But it's exciting to help somebody who's applying it.
Yes.
And if they're already in motion and you can tell that, like maybe Barry already had a Facebook page or whatever.
Yep.
He's like, hey, I tried this.
But what I liked about it is what you said. Like as soon as I gave him some advice, boom, he had a Facebook page. He
Nice.
was doing all the things I asked him to do.
Cool.
So it's very rewarding for me too.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. So, man, let's see what else is on the Google Doc here. Oh, I want to talk about focus. I think lately a great example of what you choose to focus on is, this doesn't apply to everybody, but people here in Thailand right now, the visa rules are changing.
God, it's killing me.
We're probably both almost tired of talking about it, but I've noticed a real divide online. We're in different Facebook groups and stuff talking about it, different forums. And there are the people who are focusing on the problem.
Yep.
And then there are the people who, in the time it took the other people to break down exactly what the problem was, they found a solution.
Right.
And you seem like a very solution-based guy to me.
Always.
Yeah.
That conversation in particular is probably one of the reasons I needed to shut down my laptop and lay in a hammock.
Yeah.
Number one, because I don't like the form of the conversation I'm seeing online about it. I mean, I see this all the time in internet marketing circles of all sorts. The gravy train is over. Google doesn't work. Facebook isn't working anymore. People are losing their accounts. It's like the sky cannot always be falling.
Mm-hmm.
The sky cannot always be falling.
Right.
And I'm a smart guy and I can figure out things.
Right.
And even if someone politely asks me to leave Thailand and not come back, I will make that work too.
Yeah. And that really is the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that bad.
So yes, a funny thing is I asked online. I said, hey, I'm thinking about the two different kinds of visas. One's an ed visa, one's a biz visa, and immediately started getting way more feedback than I wanted, than it was useful.
Right.
Because the truth is nobody really knows. Nobody really knows.
Yep.
Certainly nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow because this is changing so quickly.
I saw a guy yesterday claim to know what was going to happen 6 months from now. And it's just horrible to put that out there.
But why are people saying the retirement visa is going to go away and
how do you know
the
that?
ed visa? It's like, what? How do you know that?
Are you a member of the royal family of Thailand? No.
Yes.
I usually bite my tongue, but it's hard. People in traffic and online, people tend to say things and do things that they wouldn't do face to face. Somebody stuck behind you in traffic is way more likely to give you the finger than the guy behind you in the line at the grocery store.
Yes.
Okay. So there was a guy going crazy and getting really personal and, telling people like, well, you've been getting this free ride for years and it's time, GTFO, get over it, either get the proper visa or get the F out of Thailand.
His name is Sefton.
Oh, it was actually a different guy.
Was it?
There's two of them.
Okay.
Anyway, the guy was going crazy and it wasn't helpful at all. There was no helpful information.
Yep.
He was just saying basically you deserve it, get out of here.
Yep.
And who knows why he thought he deserved it and we didn't. Anyway, and there was this long thread and I couldn't, it was like not watching the NASCAR crash. I couldn't. I read it and it took me 10 minutes to read it probably. And at the end of it, I got a little bit smart ass or cheeky, I think. I'm still trying to figure out what cheeky means. My English friends are trying to explain it to me. But I got a little bit smart ass and said, first of all, I think I might have deleted a couple of comments because I'm the moderator of the
Yeah,
group.
get
And
mad.
and if you start getting personal attacks, what's the point?
Yeah.
Get out of there, because then it stirs everybody up.
Totally.
Anyway, I said, first of all, nobody knows what's going to happen 6 months from now. And second of all, in about the time it took me to read all these comments, I went and got an ed visa.
Yeah.
So I'm good. I mean, it's not processed yet, but it's in the works, and I'm at the point of waiting. And then in a few weeks, I have to drive to Laos to go to the capital and get my ed visa. And, I probably should learn some Thai anyway. I'm living here, and my girlfriend's Thai.
Yeah.
Why not? Let's go learn some Thai.
Yeah.
And it's 2 hours. No, it's 3 hours twice a week. And to be honest, from what I've read, half the students show up and half of them don't. And some of them show up half the time, whatever.
Right.
I mean,
this right now is probably my biggest problem in life, which is pretty good to say.
yeah,
Because it isn't. It's like, especially I will say, especially being an American citizen, you get away with a lot of things that other people don't. My girlfriend's Filipino.
Mhm.
So I, did get her into classes. She's actually going to be in class
I
with
saw
you.
her when I went to sign up. She was sitting in the chair.
Yes, she's going to be in class with you.
Yeah.
I haven't done it because I still feel like I'm going to find a way around it, but I might.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the one that I've sort of batted around for the last few weeks, which is how do I make myself. I really want to not go to class 6 hours a week.
Right.
I guess is the real truth of the matter.
Right.
And I just feel like I'm going to pull some rabbit out of my hat, but who knows?
Yeah. You know what I've brought up many times, and I think maybe now everybody's getting motivated enough that it could happen. I just don't know if I want to be the point man on this project. But if there was, because, they've at times, and still I think in some places, you can do an education visa to learn Muay Thai.
Yeah.
And I know at the school I was at, they offer Spanish, German, Japanese, Chinese. I think it would be awesome if there was some kind of program here for internet business.
Yeah.
If that was your job, was to go to class twice a week and learn about that,
right.
I'd be there. We do groups and events like that anyway.
Yeah.
So I guess if we hook up
one of the things and this has nothing to do with your podcast, you're welcome to edit it out. But I'm going to the States for a month. I'm back in the end of August. I think I'm going to come back with a tourist visa and see my CrossFit gym is talking about doing that visa.
Yeah.
And see if they have their act together, and I just do that.
Right. That would be cool. I considered going and talking to the owner of that gym.
They're just not there yet. They don't have all their I's dotted and T's crossed.
And right people paid.
Yeah. I
didn't say that. Okay, so for those people who aren't in Thailand, let's move on to something else. Let's see. I have a question for you. I've never asked you this. Do you set goals?
I do not set goals.
Okay. Have you in the past?
I'm sure that I have. I've actually done more of the sort of vision boarding type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never been much of a New Year's resolution type person. I keep mentioning CrossFit. I love CrossFit. They're big in writing down your weights and keeping track of your person. I don't do any of that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like life is a marathon and not a sprint. Not to belittle having goals. I think they're important. I just don't have things that I write down.
Yeah.
Because life is dodgeball.
Right.
I just don't know. So
yeah.
In general, I like my biggest goals are to wake up in the morning and say, what should I do today? I've already achieved that.
Yeah.
How do I keep that going? I guess is my biggest goal.
And the reason I ask you isn't because I think everybody should have goals. I'm curious because you seem to be. You have a lot of things in life that a lot of people are setting goals to get towards.
Yeah.
And interesting. I know a guy who, at the time, I think he was about 70, and he acts like he's 45.
Mm-hmm.
He used to wake up during the part of the year where it's warm enough. He would wake up and swim across Lake Padden and back, it's in Bellingham, Washington, and it's not huge. If I had to guess, to go across it and back is probably more than a quarter mile, but less than a half a mile. Yeah. And when you're 70,
amazing.
I know a lot of 30-year-olds that can't do that.
Oh, sure.
I mean, so anyway, this guy, he's a really creative guy and really reflective and thinks a lot. And I don't remember even how we got on the topic, but we've been a part of a couple groups where we talk about deep stuff. And he said, think he said, and he's really cool about, he's not like prescribing stuff. He's not saying do this. It doesn't feel like an order. But he says, well, what works for me is,
Right.
you know, or you might think about,
I like that.
yeah. And he goes, you might consider, instead of thinking about what you want in the form of like your goal is to get this kind of car or
Yes.
whatever,
Yes.
this many months on vacation, he said, consider the qualities you want your life to have,
Yeah.
which seems to me like you're on that same wavelength.
How do you want to feel?
Yeah. And I said, wow, that really made me think. And so then I thought, what do I value? Freedom is a big deal for me. And I think that might be why I get mad when the internet doesn't work, or I'm stuck in traffic, or people are in my way when I'm trying to walk. Like I'm not in control.
Yeah.
So I like to control my own, you know, like what do I want to do today? Where do I want to go next month?
Yeah.
And I like variety. You know, so I would say that's a cool thing. Think about what qualities you want your life to have.
This is making me think of what my current desired quality is, and I'm going to share it with you because maybe you can help me get there. That feeling. So when I was mentioning Colorado, this was in a time when I had a bunch of money and like literally I didn't know what to do with it. I was buying gold and silver, if that tells you anything, just because I wanted to do something with my money. And
Where did you bury it?
I buried it just somewhere in America.
Okay.
But I had this feeling of like I don't need to work for sure in the next 3 months, much less the next 3 years. And I just had nothing but time. Like right now, for some reason I'm stuck in this. Like I need to,
Yeah.
I'm on these projects and that I've self-prescribed as being very, very urgent. I need to not feel that way. Like I remember the first time I did a trip around Southeast Asia. Internet was internet cafes. You didn't have a laptop.
Yep.
You had to go to a cafe and plug in, and maybe you could check your email, but you're not going to do any work.
And you would pay people to use their Skype to call
Yes.
your family. I
Yes.
remember that.
And I read probably 30 books because I didn't have anything else to do. I had no other agenda.
Yeah.
I want that back.
Wow. That's a big question. Yeah, shoot. Okay.
I want that back.
I guess my mind jumps to we have to figure out why you feel like these projects are a must.
Yeah.
What's causing that? It's like Stephen Covey, he always talks about for every 100 people hacking at the leaves and branches, there is one striking at the root.
Yeah.
Like, where does it come from?
Yeah.
It's interesting. I know what you mean because I sometimes overwork myself, get a little irritated, and I don't have 10 or 15 years in the bank, but right now I probably have a year and a half, or maybe 2 in the bank, and
it's no different than 10 or 15.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. It's interesting. I would say it's interesting, right? So one of the things I'm doing this week, or maybe in the more, I'm going to the United States for all of August, so I have lots of time to not work.
Mm-hmm.
Is to unplug myself from my businesses, just to see, do I need to be so plugged in?
Yeah.
Right. I want to see it. Am I going to suffer at all because I'm not? Think about this. A lot of us probably listening to podcasts or in the internet space, we're always checking our Google rankings, like how many page views have I had? Where do I stand for this keyword phrase? And every day you're like, I was 10 yesterday and today I'm 11, and I've been doing that. I've been needlessly checking these stats that don't really matter. And these are the things I'm trying to unhook my brain from.
Mm-hmm. It's a very worthy aim.
I think so. I think I'm basically driving myself crazy for no reason.
Well, okay. So this is just like a thought experiment. I don't know if you can actually know this, but if you had 50 years of money in the bank, do you think you'd feel differently? Maybe your thermostat is set at 20 years. Or,
yeah, I don't know. I can tell you that I don't know. It's hard.
Unless you're in those shoes, how do you know, right? Because I was actually thinking about something almost like this last night. I think I was considering basically the same thing. Why am I always pushing?
Mm-hmm.
What do I feel like I haven't made it to yet? And I think, once in a while I remember I'm not going to live forever, for example.
Right. And
I said, okay, I'm 33. What is 60 years of expenses at the current rate I'm spending money? And it was less than $1 million. I think it was like $700,000.
Okay.
And of course, there's inflation and stuff like that.
Yep.
But maybe I buy a bunch of gold and silver
Yeah.
and whatever.
Not a good investment though when I bought it, just that way.
Yeah, but if I can somehow hedge against inflation,
Yep.
I need about $700,000 in current value
Yep.
to live for about 60 years when I would be 93.
Got it.
And then if there's gene therapy and I'm back in the same body I have right now, then I'll just go back to work.
Mm-hmm.
But which I don't think is unlikely, by the way.
Okay.
And if people think that sounds crazy, go back to 1898 and tell the Wright brothers they're crazy when they were working on bicycles. Anyway, I realized, okay, so does that mean if I had $702,000, I think it was, would I feel like I could just not worry about anything anymore? Or would I still wake up in the morning and look at my Facebook ad report and see which one was converting best and turn the other one off and increase the ad spend on that one?
I have a friend of mine who lived in the Philippines when I was there. Now he's back in Canada with his Filipino wife, who had another large Facebook page, probably bigger than both of ours by a substantial amount, based around atheism. And he was helping me learn how to do Facebook ads and things. And one thing I started talking to him about was like, how are you monetizing this? Because I was big. I'm like, okay, you built this investment. Like, how are you making money from it? And he's like, well, no, I'm actually kind of losing money. I'm like, well, for how long can that go on for? He's like, well, honestly.
What was he spending on? Buying likes?
Buying likes.
Okay.
He's like, I actually have enough money. I don't have to work. Cool. And I was like, how did you earn that money? He's like, well, no, my parents. And he was a really nice guy. And
Sure.
He wasn't one of those trust fundies. But he was diligent about building this atheism movement, really, more than just a Facebook page. I would probably be like that. I would probably have my thing that I was passionate about, and I would just be working on that.
You know what I wonder? Because I think a lot of times we think we're way more removed from our evolution and our roots than we really are. And you can't just kill like 100 woolly mammoths and put them all in a safe and eat them later, right?
Right.
Maybe we're just wired to go hunting every day.
I think so.
Maybe that's not bad as long as we don't let it stress us out too much or something.
I mean, this is the thing. I've been getting massages lately every day. I had one the other day where I told this masseuse, I'm having this pain right here, which she trained in her mind to like how he wants to really be hurt. So for an hour, she was like all elbows and knees.
Gosh, yeah.
And it was good.
Yeah.
It was good, although it hurt like hell. And I'm like, I left there feeling like I got hit by a train and wondering like, how did I get so stressed out here in Thailand? Like, this is not.
That's why you were tight.
Yes, it's all stress.
Yeah.
Yes, I go to CrossFit and I do that, but that's not why.
Yeah.
That's not why you have knots in your back.
Right.
Not why I live here. So, it's good to have these conversations and to sometimes take a step. It's one thing I love about traveling, which I haven't been doing a lot of lately, which is you get perspective on your own life.
Yeah. If people are listening that can answer these questions, let's do a little role reversal. Give us some links or comment on the YouTube video or whatever, and let us know. Because I'm curious. I'd like to read about this more. It's something we're both, we can talk about it on a later episode maybe once we figure it out.
Yeah.
One thing that really helped me at a time, like right now, sometimes I feel a little tense and it's not bad at all. But there was a point where I had a real estate project go south fast, and it was just bleeding. At one point I could have come over here for, I forget what the math was, but a lot of years.
Yeah.
And it was like a choose your own adventure book. You remember those?
Mm-hmm.
And so the choice was take all this money you've made on real estate projects and find one big property that will cash flow and set you up for life, or take this, I don't know, $130,000 that you have in cash and go live for a heck of a long time in a place like Thailand or Indonesia or whatever, or all those places, all of the above.
Yeah.
And I said, well, let's just go get the big property that will cash flow. I did some projections, and with a realistic rate of return, I should be able to turn this chunk of cash into $3,000 a month. And I went and did that, thought I did that, found out instead of 3,000 plus a month, it was negative 10 to 15 a month. And I could ride it out for a little while. I had some lines of credit. So then the mission was, let's turn this thing around. I need to get it full. I need to get rents up. I need to get the people who aren't paying out and replace them with good tenants, da da da. And I worked my tail off, and it was super stressful because both my parents' credit was on the line and my mom's retirement money. I talked about this on the last episode. Very, very stressful time for me. And I had a relationship going on at the time that was kind of serious, and that started getting more stressful. They were kind of playing, the relationship was making business more stressful. It was the downward spiral. Business was making the relationship more stressful. And then my health, I could sleep for, I could be in bed for a good amount of time, 8 or 9 hours, and wake up and felt like I slept one. And I had these big bags under my eyes, and my friends later told me, my friends who were smart enough not to tell somebody then that you look like shit, they told me later, you're looking better, man. I'm glad, because for a while there I was worried about you. You looked like shit. And you could just see the stress on my face. Anyway, at one point I bailed out and went to Thailand because that was one place I never felt like that. I said, let's spend some money I don't have and go to Thailand so I don't have a breakdown.
Yeah.
I've never had any kind of nervous breakdown. I don't even really know what that means exactly,
Yeah.
but I felt like I was close to whatever that is. So I got the hell out of there, and I went to my hammock. You were talking about the hammock. And I went to Kopangan, really pretty little island, really laid back, sitting in my hammock, petting this orange cat that used to come visit me every day, and managed to not freak out. Trying to remember the order everything happened in. Before that point, my appendix blew up. And, I ended up in the ER with something that, now it's not likely to kill you, but rewind a few decades, it could kill you.
Yeah.
And I said, this isn't worth it.
No.
I'm stressing myself out over money to the point where, like, my health is being affected, my personal relationships, blah, blah, blah. What I'm trying to get at is presence. I found a book and an author, Eckhart Tolle, and I read A New Earth while I was on that trip, and that really helped me out. So just being present, maybe you and I tend to think a little bit, well, thinking long-term can be useful at times to plan and all that,
Yes.
but maybe we live in the future a little too much in our heads, possibly. I know I don't dwell in the past. Doesn't seem like you do either.
No.
But maybe I dwell in the future a little bit too much.
Definitely The Power of Now being a great book. This is probably the hardest thing for those of us that live on internet speed is to actually have a conversation with somebody, not be and not have it be about how you're monetizing your Facebook page. This is difficult. I remember my last 7-8 years ago, the last trip around Southeast Asia, I did a 10-day meditation.
Yep.
It was fucking brutal.
Mm-hmm.
That's
bold. 10 days.
Yeah.
Had you ever done a shorter one?
No.
Wow.
No, and
just went straight to the marathon.
At day 5, I was, the days I would wake up in the morning and go, how am I going to get through this day? It's so long.
Yeah.
And funny thing is, even though it was brutal, it made a very big impact on my life. Never been able to do a daily meditation thing, but I will do that 10-day. I'm going to go back to that same monastery and do the 10 days again soon, sometime this year. Hopefully.
That's funny because before you brought up this story, I was about to ask you. I said I almost had this brilliant idea to do a meditation. Maybe we should both go. Yeah. 10 days though. Wow.
10 days. I mean, most of them are 10 days here in Thailand.
Yeah.
Or more. And they do a smart thing, which is you check in all your luggage, whatever you take with you, and you can leave anytime you want, but it has to be the next day. Right? So if you're like on day 5, you're like, I need to get out of here, which I did. They're like, cool. We'll have all your stuff ready for you tomorrow morning. In the meantime, why don't you talk to one of the nuns or monks and talk about what's going on?
And you felt that sense of relief because you're leaving in the morning, right?
A little bit of relief.
Okay.
Honestly, if I would have seen my bag, I'd have grabbed it and said, see you later. And she even said, like, it's funny, people come here slowly, but they leave here quickly. But just having that little bit of time to talk about what was going on, I was able to stay. Right. So now I'm curious to see what is my mindset like. That I literally was going crazy. Like we do several hour-long meditations. It's a beginner's course, so they're not brutal. Several hour-long meditations each day, And at the end of the hour, they ring the little bell, and one of the nuns was funny. She's like, "So what are you thinking about? Your parents, girlfriend, boyfriend, mother, father? You know, like." And I when that bell rang, I literally came back from a journey that I was on at light speed. You know, while you're trying to not think and be present, your mind says, no, 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 this is not where I want to be. Very, very interesting, very enlightening.
Sounds, yeah, very. I've never done anything like that. I don't think I've ever meditated for more than 20 minutes.
It's wild.
You know what I noticed though? The few times that I have, I'll get on YouTube, and as it's kind of ironic, I'll get on YouTube to do my meditation,
Yeah.
but I'll play it on a speaker and then not look at the screen. Or sometimes it's a really kind of cool picture that's calming, you know? I remember one, it was the face of Ganesh, you know, the elephant, and it slowly got closer towards you, and this light started in the middle that got bigger and bigger, and it was like a 15-minute thing. And I remember thinking, man, 15 minutes is going to feel like a long time, but I just got in this weird zone. Sort of, it's almost like, you know, how you get in that trance when you're watching TV or something. Sort of similar. And 15 minutes was up, and it seemed like maybe 3 or 4 minutes. That struck me.
Yeah. I would say the last thing I ever want to do is meditate in front of my computer.
Yeah.
I spend all day doing.
Yeah. Huh. I like the guided ones.
Yeah, I get you. I feel you.
Where they're actually the Ganesh one wasn't like that. It was just music and this weird image that basically put me in a trance. But the guided ones where you close your eyes and so I'm not looking at the computer in this case, but it tells you now you're walking down this marble staircase, and at the bottom of the staircase there's this green grass, and it leads you from like civilization out into the middle of nowhere in the woods, kind of like Colorado. And then you come back to the staircase at the end, and then you open your eyes. Anyway, they're kind of fun.
It'd be great to do it with you. I mean, doing it together isn't really helpful because we
Right.
don't talk to each other during 10 days,
Yeah.
but I definitely would go with you. I think it's one of those things that you might have an idea of what it's going to be like, and you're absolutely wrong.
Yeah.
Whatever your idea is, it ain't that.
Yeah.
And even me now knowing that experience I had, I'll still be completely shocked when I do it again.
Mm-hmm. This brings up something else I want to talk to you about. And I could be wrong about this, but you seem to me like somebody who tries new things kind of a lot. Would you say that's true?
Yes, that is true.
Okay. You've mentioned rock climbing. You know, we went to the houseboats. You've done this meditation. So I wanted to just kind of get your thoughts on that. Trying new things. What does it do for you?
I have a friend of mine in California who I used to go mountain biking with a lot. He's a good 20 years older than me, or near there. He was in great shape. We used to ride together all the time. And he was a big tango dancer, and I kind of wanted to learn something different, so I thought I'd try salsa dancing. And I found it very difficult. And he said, you need to get comfortable being a beginner. You know, you need to get comfortable in that space of being uncomfortable, right? And the more that I can say, yeah, I don't know what it's like. Feels awkward, and I'm just, feeling shy and weird, and that's the part that you have to become friends with.
Yeah.
Right, because that then opens up so many doors. You don't have to just keep doing the things that you're good at.
Right. That's 100% true. I mean, you think about everything you take for granted now. At some point, it was new.
Absolutely.
Riding a bike, tying your shoes, whatever.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's funny because I went salsa dancing with my girlfriend, who's quite a few years younger than me. She's 28. I'm 43. Although we seem perfectly matched, so who knows? But we were talking about salsa dancing. She wants to learn, and she was, I'm a little shy about going, and it's easy for you. You're good at it. I'm like, yeah. But I was just like you.
Yeah.
And now I kind of want that experience. I want to be the awkward, weird guy,
Yeah.
stumbling over himself, because I know that eventually that leads to proficiency.
Yeah, true. I think that what your friend told you is really wise. I know I've felt new a lot lately, a lot more than I had in the previous 5 years or so, maybe. I start my background. At one point, I was so green in real estate, it was ridiculous. When I took my licensing class, they were talking about mortgages and different types of mortgages, and I sat there pretending and nodding, and in the back of my mind wondering what a mortgage was. I just didn't know what that word meant.
Mm-hmm.
I knew there were loans you could get from the bank to buy a house. I just didn't know that's what a mortgage is.
Right.
And at the first Christmas party I was at Keller Williams Real Estate, and first Christmas party, I think they asked me if I wanted a beer or did you bring your own? And I said, no, I'll take one. I didn't bring my own. And oh, you didn't bring anything? Nah. I said, you want to know a secret? You want to know why I didn't bring any? What? I said, I'm 20. And they, what? I don't know how old they thought I was. And for the first several years, this is a tangent. I always go on tangents. For the first several years in real estate, I used my senior picture from high school on my business cards. And a few people knew that. A lot of people didn't. And that's funny because that's the joke. People say that mostly about female realtors. Oh, what is this, her high school picture?
Right.
Because
Sure.
people in real estate tend to use like a 10-year-old picture. Anyway, I was very new at real estate. And I remember I think of it like you don't learn to swim by reading a book.
Yeah.
You jump in the pool. You can read the book first or, once you get out of the pool or whatever. Book learning is great, but you have to do stuff. You have to apply it. And jiu-jitsu for me right now. I'm so new. And I've never done any kind of like what they call combat sports or martial arts. So I feel really new. And that's something I think, especially for guys, you can feel really self-conscious about.
Sure.
That's like so manly to not be good. Like my left hook sucks.
Mm-hmm.
My right hook's awesome. I've been punching stuff with my right hand since I was a little kid.
Right.
But doing it with my left hand, it feels like the same way when you're throwing a baseball with your left hand. Right. It feels really awkward and not powerful. Yeah. And so I was doing some mitt work, I think you call it, or whatever, with a guy named Rob. You probably the Irish guy. Anyway, he's boxed for his whole life, as far as I can tell. I don't know, but man, throwing that left hook, and there's people watching. It's at Chiang Mai University. There's pretty girls in the gym, and I'm throwing this left hook that half the time I'm just kind of glancing the pad. I'm not getting it solid. But yeah, it leads to a lot of cool things.
And yes, you have to enjoy that part too.
Yeah, right.
In fact, I think you have to enjoy that part more. As soon as I got good at, quote unquote, good at salsa dancing, to be frank, I never really loved it.
Yeah.
But I did it for 3 years because I just enjoyed the act of learning it.
Yeah.
Once I got fairly proficient at it, I stopped doing it.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah. I did the same with soccer. Once I started actually scoring some goals and feeling like I could control the ball, I quit.
Yeah. Try something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's an admirable quality.
It's really interesting. And so now, would you say in general you're pretty comfortable with being new at stuff, or that wasn't always the case?
I do feel that's true. In fact, I look for that experience. Although saying that, I'm sure that I could be surprised by feeling really overwhelmingly awkward at something. I just don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah. Do you have some people it's public speaking, or is there something that would make you really self-conscious?
So public speaking could depending on the situation and the group.
Yeah.
If I really knew what I was talking about, and I probably wouldn't. Like I could have this same conversation with you in front of 1,000 people, and I don't think I would feel awkward.
Right.
Because I'm talking about my life.
Yeah.
Nobody's more an expert on that than I am. I don't put myself in situations where I know I'm not going to find it enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
Like I personally wouldn't learn public speaking knowing that I'll never want to do it, and I never, just to get over the fear. I don't know. I don't want to put myself in that place because there's so many other things that I know that I will end up liking.
Yeah.
I would rather be a beginner at those
things that are supposed to be fun.
It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
If public speaking actually could be fun, and for some people I know it is, and it might be for me. It's an example of I wouldn't want to just do it to get over the fear of it.
Yeah.
I want to do it because I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
I live my life based around fun.
Right.
Is it going to be fun? And if it isn't fun, why do you keep doing it?
Mm-hmm.
Salsa dancing is a good example.
And that's the thing. Since you said that, if it isn't fun, why are you doing it? And I brought up earlier that once in a while I remember, oh yeah, I'm not going to be here forever. How long do you think you have?
Yeah.
And even if you're young, we're both, statistically probably have decades of good, healthy life in front of us, but neither one of us know that for sure. Yep. So do you want to do something that you don't really love? And they've done studies, and I can't quote them all or whatever, but basically at the end of people's lives, I think it was a hospice nurse that asked a bunch of people a bunch of questions. It was basically a study about how they felt about their life at the end of their life, and did they have regrets? What would they have done differently? And I mean, it's what you would expect, but it's they wish they would have spent more time with friends, doing what they wanted, been less afraid to try things.
Sure.
you
Totally
know?
understandable.
And to think, I don't know, there's like this disconnect, and maybe it's certain cultures more than others, but you think, okay, that's an interesting study. Now back to work or back to my day.
Yes.
Time to go to the grocery store. But that's not always going to be somebody else in a book. Someday that's you, unless this gene therapy comes around.
Yeah.
And even then, there's going to be some other limiting factor probably. But it's you at some point.
Yeah.
So think about it now.
Yeah.
I think that's a smart thing to do. Just to get really deep on all you guys. Is there anything you want to cover? I should be asking you. Anything you want people to know? Any nuggets you want to give out?
I think we touched on a whole bunch of nuggets that you're going to have to delicately edit together.
Yeah. So I feel like we're maybe naturally kind of winding down here, and I want to first of all ask if is there anything that you're working on you want to tell people about, or any ways that you want people to help you out or get in touch with you, anything like that?
Not really. I mean, it's more, I guess I'm more paying it forward here.
Yeah.
If anything I said did touch anybody, I'm happy to carry the conversation on further with you.
Yeah.
Just get in touch with Dan and he'll connect you with me.
Yeah. Good. Something I like to ask people, and you just bought a book, so I always ask, what books were valuable to you? Movies, podcasts, YouTube channels. What do you recommend?
Well, if we're talking about sort of deep books, I think the Eckhart Tolle stuff is amazing. I think that Wayne Dyer also is amazing. Things, those kind of books are really, to me, the kind of books that you need to almost lock yourself in a room and really they're not necessarily fun books to read because you're going to do a lot of self-analysis. But when you're in that space in your life and you have the mind space to do it, can really make some radical differences for you.
Yeah, I agree. I really like both those guys. Really powerful authors. The Shia story. Have you ever heard of Wayne? Wayne Dyer's a great storyteller.
Yeah.
He's got so many stories. I mean, if you just go on YouTube and type Wayne Dyer story.
And prolific. I mean, the guy writes a ton of stuff.
Definitely is. I've got a couple things to plug real quickly, and maybe you can give me a testimonial. The game that I'm working on, the board game, which is called, right now, it's called Better Me, the Game of Growth, and there's a Facebook page for it. Anyway, I'm kind of excited because I realized I was stuck. I went back and edited all the text in the game, all the cards and everything, and we've been playing on prototypes for a while, and I just felt like I was kind of almost procrastinating. So I submitted a request for a quote yesterday from a manufacturer in China. So that's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a new step, and within the next couple weeks, I should get an estimate back, kind of an exploratory quote. How many pieces, how many cards, how big's the box, all that kind of specific stuff.
Right.
So it's kind of crazy now. I feel like I crossed some threshold. Now we're really talking. We played the game. You want to tell everybody how great it is?
It's amazing. It changed my life. I mean, the reason I get up every morning is because I think about the things I said and played in that game.
Right on.
Yeah.
Good. I actually have the stack of cards from the game here on the desk,
awesome.
in case we ever hit a dead spot, which we never did. It never happened with Rachel either, but I figured it would be a cool part of the show if we just bust out a random card,
I don't hit any dead spots with you.
No.
No, I mean, even when we're doing things that don't require talking, like playing tennis, you're not much for dead spaces.
What are you saying? All right.
What I'm saying is, it's just for those of you who like to play tennis, it's a difficult time to have a conversation.
Right.
And play tennis.
And keep score.
And all that.
Yeah.
But somehow Dan managed to do it. And maybe it's because of his game, because he's learned some skills that allow him to be at a higher level than the rest of us. But
it was the game.
The man can talk.
So you're saying if you want to be a professional athlete, you need to buy my game?
I think if you want to be professional anything.
Yeah, good. My mom would agree with you on the lack of dead spaces. I think I get it from her. Okay, so you want to give everybody your phone number so they can call you if they have questions?
Right. Well, as we mentioned earlier, I don't have a phone, so I think we're good with that.
All right. I think we're kind of there. I really appreciate you coming on the show, And that was another quick decision. I asked you if you'd do it, and you just said yes. So thank you for doing that. And I hope you guys out there in the podcast world get a lot out of this. Remember, we're on Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, and of course, odonlife.com. You can check it out in all those places. Thanks again to Mark Brenwall, and we'll see you guys next time. Cue the awesome music.